Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into some excerpts from the Mistletoe Mixup. Sounds kind of festive, right? A romance novel. And it takes place during Christmas time in Richmond, Virginia. So we're going to untangle the story, get to know the characters a little bit, and see if we can glean any insights into their motivations and maybe some potential outcomes.
It's a fascinating setting. Richmond, with its history and Southern hospitality, it's a nice, grounded backdrop for this possibly turbulent romance to play out.
It really is. Now, in the excerpts you gave me, we're focused on two main characters. Leo Sinclair, a big-time Hollywood screenwriter back in his hometown for the holidays. And then we have Rhys Montgomery, a psychiatrist, who stayed in Richmond. Now, they were college sweethearts, but things kind of fizzled out when Leo moved out to L.A. to pursue his career. So what jumps out at you about this initial setup?
Well, I think right away you can sense that classic romance novel trope of second chances. But what's interesting to me is this second chance is within a very specific time constraint. We know Leo is only in Richmond for a few weeks, just house sitting for a friend. So I think it adds a layer of tension to the story. Will their romance be just a quick holiday fling, or could it be something more?
Yeah, and I think adding to the tension, we find out that Leo is renting a penthouse apartment. That belongs to Rhys's current boyfriend, Court.
Oh, wow.
I mean, talk about
that's going to be awkward.
Yeah. And the symbolism is really rich. You have the penthouse, which is often a symbol of luxury and aspiration, belongs to Rhys's current partner, which represents his present life, while Leo, this figure from his past, is temporarily in that space. So I wonder, was this a deliberate choice by the author to highlight how complex their situation is? It definitely makes you wonder. And their first encounter is kind of interesting, too. It's that classic meet cute, a Christmas party, mistletoe. But there's a twist. Leo and Rhys end up kissing, blindfolded. What do you think about that detail?
Oh, that's interesting. It's like, a clever way to introduce this theme of recognition, or maybe the lack of it. Blindfolded, they're connecting purely on a physical, emotional level. They don't have any visual cues that could trigger memories or judgments. It allows them to experience that spark of attraction without the weight of their past relationship.
That's a great point. So even with all the awkwardness and the fact that Leo's living in his ex's boyfriend's apartment, their connection's rekindled and things they get pretty intimate.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how quickly the physical aspect of their relationship reignites. It speaks to this level of unresolved passion, and maybe even a subconscious desire to kind of recapture what they lost. But then we also see that in the middle of all this, Leo is grappling with some internal conflict. He's undeniably successful in Hollywood. An Emmy, a Golden Globe, and now he's got a major TV series in the works. But is it truly fulfilling him?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely pick up on that in these excerpts. He mentions to his friend Lori that he kind of envies her life as a novelist, the freedom she has, the lack of studio pressure. So it seems like underneath all that Hollywood glitz and glamour, there's this longing for something more authentic, something that maybe he's finding with Rhys in Richmond. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think it's really important to the story. It sets up that classic romance novel conflict, head versus heart. Leo's head is telling him to stay in Los Angeles, pursue those ambitious career goals. But his heart might be leading him back to a simpler life, back in Richmond, where he could maybe, rekindle this lost love. And I think this internal turmoil, it makes him a much more compelling character.
Definitely. And on top of his internal conflict, there's also pressure from the other characters in their lives. We see snippets of interactions with Lori, Sneaky, Court, Michael, and Spencer. How do all these supporting characters kind of contribute to the overall narrative?
They each represent different aspects of Leo and Rhys's worlds. Lori, the successful author, she kind of acts as a mirror to Leo's own journey, pursuing her writing dreams in Los Angeles while he's questioning his path. Then there's Sneaky. She's like this playful matchmaker who embodies those external forces that are pushing Leo and Rhys back together. And then you have Court, Rhys's current boyfriend. He represents the stability, the familiarity of Rhys's present life, which is a stark contrast to that unpredictable world of Hollywood that Leo embodies.
So we have these two main characters with all this history and baggage, navigating this complex web of relationships and internal conflicts, all set against this backdrop of a Christmas time romance. Where do you see the story heading from here?
Well, one of the turning points you give me in these excerpts is that scene at Michael and Spencer's Christmas party. Leo and Rhys kind of sneak away to the balcony of that vacant penthouse, and their connection deepens. So what do you make of that setting? How important is that to their relationship?
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? That empty penthouse, stripped of furniture and belongings. It becomes this space where they can shed the weight of their pasts and even their present relationships. It's almost like a blank canvas for their rekindled intimacy.
Yeah, exactly. That emptiness of the penthouse allows for a sense of freedom and possibility. It's a place where they can be themselves,
right?
Without being held back by the expectations and constraints of their everyday lives.
Yeah, but even in this really intimate space, you can tell there are hints of those complexities that are coming down the road. The excerpts show Leo struggling with his feelings. He's enjoying this reconnection with Rhys, but he's also very aware that he's only visiting.
Yeah.
That he has a whole life in L.A.
Right, and you highlighted a scene where Rhys asks Leo, ever think about how unpredictable life can be? It seems like a simple question, but it says a lot about the tension that's underlying their relationship. They're trying to enjoy the moment, but they know there's this shadow of their different lives and the distance between them.
Absolutely. And then just as they're kind of navigating this dance between past and present, future possibilities, doubts, Leo gets this life-changing phone call from his agent, Kay. He's offered this really prestigious job in Hollywood, head writer and producer on a new TV show starring a 2-time Oscar winner. What do you think? How do you think that impacts their dynamic?
It just throws another wrench in things. This job offer is huge for Leo. It's a chance to really solidify his place in the industry. But of course, it also means returning to LA, the place where their relationship fell apart years ago. So it's a classic dilemma, ambition or love.
Right. And Rhys' reaction to the news, I think, adds another layer to this. He tries to be supportive, but you can sense that disappointment and apprehension. Do you think he's afraid of being hurt again?
I think so, yeah. He's been down this road before with Leo, and he knows how easily things can fall apart when you have ambition and distance involved. So yeah, he's trying to protect himself, even as he finds himself falling for Leo again.
It's interesting. The author really uses the setting to highlight the contrast between these two worlds. Richmond represents stability, that groundedness, Rhys' familiar life. Los Angeles, though, embodies that fast-paced, unpredictable nature of Leo's Hollywood career.
Yeah, that contrast is really important. It's not just a geographical distance. It's a difference in lifestyles and priorities. And you pointed out another detail that I found interesting. Leo is writing a meet-cute scene for his own romance novel. And it kind of mirrors his situation with Rhys. Why do you think the author did that?
Well, I think it's a way to show us Leo's inner struggle. He's thinking about these questions of love and ambition, both personally and creatively. And it also emphasizes the theme of second chances that we're seeing throughout the excerpts.
Exactly. Both Leo and Rhys are getting another chance to maybe rewrite their past, make new choices. But it's not easy. There's that potential for heartache. And then, while we're focused on Leo and Rhys, we have this subplot. Rhys' patient, Dorothea, attempts suicide. What do you make of that?
Yeah, at first it seems kind of separate from the main story, but I think it has a purpose. Dorothea's story shows how fragile life can be, the importance of connection, and how darkness can be there, even during the holidays. It makes Rhys confront his own fears and insecurities, too.
I agree. Dorothea's mental health struggles and her abusive marriage are a stark contrast to the romantic, escape of Leo and Rhys. It reminds us that life isn't always a fairy tale, that even with the holidays, there are real problems and pain.
Yeah, and Dorothea's suicide attempt has such a big impact on Rhys. He feels responsible. He's scared that he failed her as a psychiatrist. But it also makes him think about his own life, his choices, the risks he's willing to take.
It's like a catalyst for his growth. He realizes that life is too short to live in fear, to let past pain control his future. He's questioning whether he's settling with Court or if he really wants a future with Leo.
You highlighted a conversation between Rhys and his colleague, Erica, where he's telling her about his feelings about Leo leaving. Erica's advice is important. She tells him that wanting someone to stay isn't selfish. It shows how much they mean to you.
Right, and that conversation gives Rhys the courage to be honest with Leo. He's going to take a risk, tell Leo how he feels, even if Leo rejects him.
And this is all happening at the same time that Leo's dealing with the job offer. He's excited about it, but he's realizing it might mean leaving Rhys and going back to where it all went wrong before.
Yeah, and then we have that scene where they're having dinner at Rhys's parents' house, and Leo's father just casually suggests that Leo take Rhys back to California with him. Rhys's reaction is so telling. Like, he's surprised, can't believe it, as if being together in L.A. is impossible.
It's like he's built up these walls around himself, trying to protect himself from being disappointed. But what Leo does after that suggests that maybe he's more open to the idea than Rhys realizes.
He suggests that Rhys visit him in Los Angeles to get a taste of his life there. It's a subtle invitation, maybe a hint that he's thinking about a future with Rhys.
Yeah, and there's that scene where they're dancing on the balcony of that empty penthouse. It's like they're back where they started, back in that space of freedom and possibility. But this time, things are different. Leo is the one who wants more.
Right. He asks Rhys if he could ever see himself living in L.A. It's a big question. It goes beyond just a visit. Yeah. He's asking Rhys to imagine sharing a life together.
Yeah. And you ended the excerpts with Rhys's hesitant but not dismissive response. So we're left hanging. What happens next? Does Rhys confess his feelings? Does Leo choose love over his career? I need to know. We're definitely at a crossroads here. Rhys is wrestling with his feelings. Leo's thinking about his future. And then you've even given us some scenes with Rhys talking to Sneaky, that playful matchmaker who seems to know how to nudge people toward what they really want. What do you think about her role in all of this?
You know, it's interesting how Sneaky, even though she's kind of lighthearted, she gives Rhys some really good advice. She tells him to be honest with Leo, to just tell him how he feels. It reminds us that sometimes the best advice comes from the most unexpected places.
Yeah, she's like a wisecracking fairy godmother telling Rhys to take a chance on love.
Yeah.
But even with Sneaky's encouragement, Rhys still hesitates. He's a psychiatrist. He's trained to be rational, but he's realizing that love doesn't always make sense.
Right. I mean, his hesitation makes sense. He's been hurt before, so it's hard to open himself up to the possibility of being hurt again. Especially when it's someone like Leo who seems so out of reach with his Hollywood life and his big career ambitions.
And then there's that super awkward Christmas Eve dinner at Rhys's parents' house. Leo's dad, bless his heart, suggests that Leo should just take Rhys back to California with him. It's like he just threw a bomb into an already tense situation. How do you read Rhys's reaction to that?
It's pretty telling, isn't it? He's totally surprised. Like, he can't even believe it. It's as if the idea of actually being with Leo in Los Angeles is just too much for him to even imagine.
Yeah, it's like he's convinced himself that their connection is just temporary, a fun fling for the holidays, and that trying to make it anything more is just setting himself up for heartbreak. But the excerpts you gave me hint that Leo might feel differently. What do you think?
Well, there's that scene back in the empty penthouse, the place where they can really be themselves.
Yeah.
Leo asks Rhys if he could ever see himself living in Los Angeles. It's not just an invitation, it's a real question about whether Rhys is willing to consider making a big change in his life.
And it comes right after Leo admits that he's been thinking about Rhys, about their time together in Richmond. He's starting to see that maybe being happy isn't about awards and success in Hollywood, but about having a deep connection with someone who makes him feel grounded. Do you think he's rethinking his priorities?
It definitely seems like it. He's not just running away from his crazy Hollywood life anymore. He's really thinking about a future with Rhys.
It's a big deal for someone like him who's achieved so much. It takes guts to admit that maybe what you thought you wanted isn't really what will make you happy.
Yeah, and that's often what makes a great love story, right? It's not just about falling in love. It's about figuring out what really matters and then being brave enough to go after it, even if it means taking a risk.
So we're at the end of these excerpts, and we're left with so much anticipation. Rhys is about to tell Leo how he feels Leo's thinking about changing his whole life. Where do you think the author will take the story next?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but I have a feeling the next part of the book will really dig into their emotions. Rhys needs to get over his fear of being hurt, and Leo has to choose between his Hollywood career and a life with Rhys in Richmond.
In the end, it comes down to whether they're both brave enough to take a leap of faith and see where their hearts take them.
That's what'll keep readers hooked. The excerpts you shared show us a complicated love story, one that's not just about passion, but also about dealing with past pain, navigating different paths, and figuring out what truly matters.
This deep dive has been a fascinating look at second chances, self-discovery, and the power of love. Thanks for sharing these excerpts with us.
It was my pleasure. I can't wait to see what happens next in the story.